Chad, if you don't mind, could you kind of walk us through the night and maybe were there any calls or activity about possibly getting back into round one?
Yeah, it was a long night. Pick 54 is, makes for a long night of waiting. We weren't very aggressive in pursuing anything in the first round this year. We'd hope to have like a lot of continuity with our roster. Obviously, we got a lot of guys coming back under contract, so we gauged what the price was to move up there, but at the end of the day, we wanted to keep a lot of continuity with our team and weren't willing to give up what the price was to get up into that first round. And there were some players that we liked, but the price was just a little too high for us.
Bob Kravitz.
The second rounders don't, if you're lucky, they become rotational guys down the road. But where do you see Cassius fitting in the short term?
You're exactly right, Bob. It's second rounders it's usually a long shot for those guys. History tells you that, but there are examples of it happening. And Cassius has youth on his side. He's a young player. I think down the road as he learns the NBA game and finds his niche and his role with us, I would never put a limit on a player. I think in talking with Cassius tonight, I think he was expecting to be drafted much higher, and I think he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, which is usually a good sign. Those guys that either go undrafted or fall in the draft into the second round, the ones that tend to make it come in with a little bit to prove, and they come in with a little bit of a like a grudge, and they want to prove to the league that they missed on a player that has the talent to play in this league. And so I think Cassius down the road, I think he's got some tools to be a great defender. He's great in the open floor with his athleticism. I think the skill part of his game will really evolve, working with Nate and our new coaching staff. And I know Nate in the room was very excited as well. He's watched a lot of film on all these guys. And Cassius is the type of player, when you watch him on film, he pops. You look for a player who has some sort of skill or trait that really pops on film. And, his athleticism, his ability to run and jump is something that's a good base to work with. And I think there's more to his game to come, too.
Thanks.
Chris Hagan.
Hey, Chad, I know, you guys are probably eating pizza and playing cards or something in there waiting to pick at 54, but I know you go through the effort to set the whole draft board, and particularly when it gets down around 54. Did it play out the way you expected through all the picks leading up to you? And did you have that same group of guys you'd be choosing from? Is that what was there when it was time to go?
Yeah, this year was one of the more unique drafts. I think it was, I don't know if it was more time to evaluate players, caused a lot more variance in, where you projected guys to go. There were players who went very high that we didn't have projected quite as high. And when we got into like about the beginning, the middle of the second round, we were looking at our board and we're like, gosh, there's going to be a lot of players that we like. They're still there. So, at the end of the day, Cassius was the guy at the top of our list, that we were hoping to get to us at about pick 47, 48. We're like, gosh, he could still be there. We had him graded much higher than where we picked him, and kind of held our breath and crossed our fingers, and he was still sitting there for us. So very happy to have him still up there for us.
Kevin Bowen.
Chad, I know it's going to be a crazy next whatever handful of days for you guys as you sit here and get ready for free agency. Do you still view you guys are building around Victor as you embark on whatever free agency might hold here?
I think this roster is, it's a very deep roster with, we have some very, very good players. I don't think there's maybe one player that you necessarily are trying to build around. We got a core of players that we feel are a great core to move forward with, that are all kind of in their prime or entering the prime of their careers right now. To put it all on one player, whether that's Victor or Domas or Malcolm or TJ, whoever it might be, I think is not really how we necessarily built this team. We wanted a lot of depth, guys who complemented each other, that were all high-level players. So, Victor brings a different element than some of the other guys that we have as backcourt players. And I think Malcolm and TJ and, the rest of the guys around him in that backcourt really complement each other well. So to say we're building around one player moving forward, I think is a little misleading, because I think we got a good core of players we want to build around.
Tony East.
Yeah, Chad, you guys do have all that free agency stuff coming up. The new tax numbers you guys are pretty close to. Did you consider any moves tonight that would have potentially, reduced the team's salary situation a little bit, or something like that you'll have to consider in the future?
Sure. It's always in the forefront of your mind, trying to be conscious of, keeping some flexibility. And watching where we're at spending wise. We did look at some opportunities to try and, give us a little breathing room, but at the end of the day, we didn't feel like the price, we had to do to make that happen was worth it. So we're going to be, very conscious, of obviously where we're at when it comes to the tax, but, Mr. Simon is very committed to try and build a team that can contend. And I think, he's going to support what we feel is the best basketball decision. He always has done that. And he's been great about that for KP and Kelly and, Peter when he was here. And so he's always been supportive of that. If he feels like, this move can help us get to the next level, then he's going to support us with that.
Anyone else? Raise your hand.
Yeah, I have one.
All right, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, Chad, I was just curious how you felt about the uniqueness of the quick turnaround now to free agency. Since of the lack of activity in the draft, probably not a huge challenge, but what is that like now quickly moving into a free agency?
Yeah, very, very unique times. We've been prepping for the draft and free agency for quite a while. So it comes at us fast, but it's something we've had a lot of time to prepare for too. But, there's so many different things that come at you during this time of year that, you probably talked about at some point, but you got to make quick decisions on. And, you're talking the draft, then right into free agency, then now instead of going from there to summer league, you're going right into your season and you're dealing with the pandemic and testing and quarantines and things like that. So it's trying to break it down into one thing at a time, I think is the approach we've taken. Because if you look at too much at once, it can kind of overwhelm you and, distort your ability to make good decisions. So we've tried to break it down and isolate, what's coming at us at once. We're really going to turn tomorrow morning towards free agency and this roster and find a way to help this team take another step next year.
Kevin Bowen.
Yeah, just a question about Jeremy and his rehab. Is he a guy that you think will be ready to start the season?
His rehab's been coming along very well. I think he's had no setbacks, knock on wood. Josh Corbeil, Carl Eaton, the staff, they've been handling the rehab. Sean Wendell are very encouraged with where he's at. I think he's kind of hit the point now where he's, coming back from that type of injury, it becomes part of it is, you get through the physical part of healing your body, but now it becomes a little bit of a mental thing you've got to overcome. The first time you jump in a crowd or where you land a little awkward or you're run and jump, maybe it's the motion that caused the injury before the first time you do that. So it's Jeremy kind of getting over that hurdle is going to be kind of a big part of his recovery, but he's on the floor. He looks great. He's feeling well. He's starting to progress to do more and more kind of every week as he progresses through the rehab. And, we have a lot of confidence in our staff and what they're doing with him. And I think Jeremy does as well. And optimistic that we'll have him back, at the start of the season or once we get going with the start of the season. But we're not going to push him until he's ready. And he'll know when he's ready and our staff will tell us when he's ready.
Kristen Erie.
Hey, Chad, with camp starting, just really in a matter of a few weeks and a number of players that were not drafted tonight, does that begin the process? And how many players are you allowed to bring into camp this year? Has it changed from past years?
No, it's going to be very similar to the past. We're allowed to have a couple two-way players again. We can do Exhibit 10 contracts for the Mad Ants again. So, working with Nate on what he ideally wants, for numbers of bodies in the camp and positions and things like that. And our staff is actually down the hallway working on that as we speak. That develops as the night goes on. A lot of the groundwork is laid before the draft on, players, whether it be a two-way contract or Exhibit 10 or a training camp invite. So that takes, a little bit of time, but we're working on that as we speak. And, like you said, training camp's right around the corner. So it's a little unique this year, but I think it creates a little more urgency for, agents to make decisions, players to make decisions, and teams to make decisions. So, we'll put together a camp and a roster for both Pacers and the Mad Ants that we believe in and our coaches believe in.
Tony East.
Yeah, Chad, without Summer League, a shorter offseason, potentially an altered G League season, how much harder is it going to be to develop a guy like Cassius who you just picked 54th?
That's a great question. We still don't have, all the information on how the G League season is going to look. We do know that we can, get him here and start training with our guys and our coaches. But we'll kind of use, the guidance the league gives us on how that's going to work. We could potentially look at a two-way situation potentially, and which we'll talk to his agent about some more. But we'll get our hands on it as soon as we can, and I know he's excited to get here and talking with Cassius tonight.
Scott Agnes.
Hey, Chad, Nate's quite a difference in terms of player development. In general, what kinds of things did he stress? What was he hoping for, looking for in his next group of players here, starting with Cassius?
Yeah, I think Nate likes versatility. He likes guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. His coaching philosophy is much more of a free-flowing kind of style of play that allows different guys to bring the ball to the floor, different guys to handle the ball in the perimeter, different guys handling like dribble handoffs, coming off screens, penetrating. So there's a lot more, I wouldn't say randomness, but a lot more openness to how we play. So to play that style of play, you need guys that are kind of multi-skilled, that maybe don't just rely on one particular thing that they do. We feel like in looking at Cassius, I think playing up and down and playing the open floor is a strength of his right now. Nate really likes his ability to get to the paint, which is a big part of what Nate wants to do with a spread floor. The paint's wide open. He wants guys that can get in there. And so I think Nate feels like he's got some skills and obviously some physical tools to work with. Want to continue to work with Cassius on his shooting, his decision making. And ultimately, we all feel, everybody in the room, coaches and scouts and front office, feel like he has the potential to be a tremendous defender. And I think that's the thing that really, early in his career, he can really hang his hat on. And I see he's got the size to guard multiple positions, whether it's a point guard to a small forward. I think Nate really likes just guys that have that kind of versatility on both ends.